Coming up next on Arizona Horizon, we'll have an update on yesterday's national elections in Canada. Also tonight, the latest on bird flu concerns, including reports of cases spreading to humans. And the deadline for Real ID is fast approaching. Those stories and more next on Arizona Horizon.
Arizona Horizon is made possible by contributions from the Friends of Arizona PBS, members of your public television station.
Good evening and welcome to Arizona Horizon. I'm Ted Simons. It's that time of year. A wildfire burning southeast of Tucson has forced evacuations. The Stronghold fire started yesterday morning and continues to move through dry desert vegetation east of Benson and St. David. The fire's burned 2,000 acres and counting and is 0% contained. Cochise County ordered evacuations for area west of Cochise County Stronghold. One outbuilding has been destroyed. Cause of the fire as yet unknown. Other headlines: Arizona joined 21 other states in suing the Trump administration over the president's executive order dismantling AmeriCorps, an independent volunteer public service agency that provides community-based services addressing educational, public safety, and environmental concerns. The suit claims that AmeriCorps is authorized by Congress, and thus the president and Elon Musk have no legal power to gut the agency. President Trump today again changed course on tariff threats, this time reversing some of the tariffs he imposed on imported cars and car parts. The changes included eliminating tariffs on steel and aluminum on vehicles that already pay a 25% tariff. The reversal comes after Ford, GM, and other car makers complained that the added tariffs would raise the cost of production and thus backfire on U.S. manufacturing. Comments from the president here?
We just wanted to help them during this little transition, short term. And during this little, if they can't get parts, you know, it has to do with a very small percentage. If they can't get parts, we didn't want to penalize them. And they have a 1-year period and then they have an extra year, but it's for a very, very small part of the car. Basically, they're paying 25%.
The move comes as GM today removed its once solid forecast for profit growth this year. The automaker said that with uncertainty created by the president's trade policies, any profit prediction would be a, quote, guess. And there was a dust-up between the White House and Amazon today. The administration reacted angrily to a report that Amazon was planning to show consumers just how much tariffs added to the price of items for sale. Amazon said that the idea was never considered for its main site and only talked about for an offshoot store called Amazon Hall. But the White House went on the attack.
I just got off the phone with the president about Amazon's announcement. This is a hostile and political act by Amazon. Why didn't Amazon do this when the Biden administration hiked inflation to the highest level in 40 years? I will not speak to the president's relationships with Jeff Bezos, but I will tell you that this is certainly a hostile and political action by Amazon.
The president's relationship with Amazon owner Jeff Bezos is enough that Amazon is now emphasizing that it has no plans to put any tariff information on any of its pricing. Prime Minister Mark Carney and his Liberal Party won yesterday's federal elections in Canada. It was a stunning turnaround in a race that just a few months ago showed the Conservative Party leading in opinion polls by as much as 25%. The Liberal Party fell short of winning an outright majority in Parliament, but still counted more seats than the Conservatives. Joining us now is John Von Hiking. He's professor and chair of the Political Science Department at the University of Lethbridge in Alberta. Good to have you here. Thank you so much for joining us.
Great to join you. Thank you for having me.
What are your thoughts a day later? What are your thoughts on what happened yesterday?
Yeah, well, I mean, the polls told us to expect that the Liberals would likely win. As you pointed out, the Conservatives were ahead by as much as 25 points, but two things happened in January that changed the game. The first was January 6th, when the former Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, resigned. He was highly unpopular, and it kind of, as events bore out, by him resigning and Mr. Carney replacing him as Prime Minister or leader of the Liberal Party, that certainly improved the Liberal Party's fortunes. The second event was the inauguration, January 20th, of Mr. Trump. and his activities on social media and the various activities calling for Canada to be the 51st state, which were not received very well by the Canadian electorate. And they responded by and large part by moving support to the Liberals because a significant number of Canadians saw Mark Carney as the best bet to stand up to Mr. Trump.
As far as some of those comments, those social media comments, what weighed more? Tariffs, talks of annexation? What really hit with Canadian voters?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think they hit in different ways. So the 51st state comments were kind of ill received by Canadians as a wound to Canadian pride. Whereas the tariff talk scared Canadians in their pocketbooks, and especially Canadians living in central Canada around Toronto, the Great Lakes region, which is the manufacturing core of the Canadian economy, which the tariffs represented the greatest threat.
Indeed, but it's just interesting, John. I mean, the turnaround, I mean, the conservative leader, the conservative candidate, he lost his own seat. This is from a party double digits, as we've mentioned, ahead, and such a quick turnaround. That really is something.
Yeah, well, the Conservatives will definitely have to spend some time in the coming weeks and months investigating and reviewing their performance and how they campaigned. But I'll just kind of point out two things. The first is that the Conservatives actually vastly improved their vote count and their seat count in this election from where they were. In fact, their increases were significantly more than the Liberals. Not enough to win them the election, mind you, but they showed the greatest increases. And those increases actually came a lot in the region of suburbs around Toronto, which is the biggest metropolitan area in Canada. With regard to Mr. Poilievre losing his riding, I mean, that's humiliating. When that happens to a leader of a party, that's humiliating. But I think part of that can be attributed to the large increase in federal government employees who live in the Ottawa region. Ottawa is the capital of Canada. Pierre Poilievre, he did represent a riding in the Ottawa region, and I think there's just the shifting demographics and the large number of federal workers on the government payroll that has really increased since COVID.
So John, who is Mark Carney? Compare him to Pierre Trudeau, and the Liberals do not have a majority now in Parliament. What are his challenges getting things done?
He's got a lot of challenges. So Mark Carney, he's got quite a resume. He's the former former governor of the Bank of Canada, former governor of the Bank of England, which is kind of unusual. So he comes with an impressive resume of international finance and helping to run companies like Brookfield. But the challenges he faces are ones that Canadians have faced over the last decade, and really some of the same challenges that that the previous government had. So economic performance has been disappointing. High housing prices has left a lot of people out of the housing market. I mean, just as a data point, the average house price in Canada is higher than it is in the United States, with an average annual income which is lower amongst Canadians. So there's some real kind of economic problems. One of the interesting data points in support for the parties is that the Conservatives were generally more popular amongst people under, say, 50 or 45. And part of that is that there's growing disillusionment among younger people about economic prospects and also prospects of owning a home. I just saw a study that was released last week that showed that the average age where somebody buys their first home in Canada had risen from, like within the last 15 years, had risen from 30 years old to 40 years old.
Wow, wow.
And you can imagine sort of what kind of life,
Yes.
how that affects one's lives and life prospects.
So, real quick, we got to wrap it up here, but real quickly, I do want to get the idea of a new prime minister here, same prime minister, but the prime minister in for good here now, and the relationship with the U.S. What's the dynamic, relatively quickly, if you could?
Yeah, well, Mr. Carney and Mr. Trump spoke today, and the report on the phone call that it was cordial and they plan to meet in person at sometime soon. They didn't say when that would be. I think Mr. Carney will make every effort to do two things. First, to tell the Canadian electorate that the Trump administration represents an existential threat to Canadians. And second, to try to dampen that threat, to try to make sure that relations with the United States get steadier. He'll have an opportunity in June when the G7 meets in Alberta, but they might meet beforehand, but we don't know for sure.
John Von Hiking, again, University of Lethbridge. Thank you, sir. We appreciate it.
My pleasure.
One of nature's greatest displays of might is the most iconic waterfall in the world. It's a force that shaped the region and created a natural realm unlike any other.
As you travel upriver, the modern world seems to fall away. It feels like a trip back in time.
Discover the many wonders of Niagara Falls.
Wednesday night at 7 on Arizona PBS.
African Americans have higher death rates for cancer, higher death rates at younger ages for heart attacks, for strokes.
There's nothing genetically biological about being black that would cause these poor health outcomes across the board.
Why is it that these disparities exist?
NOVA investigates the science behind the disparity.
Wednesday night at 8 on Arizona PBS.
Bird flu is spreading. The virus has already torn through America's dairy herds and poultry flocks. It's even jumped to other mammals, including humans. Are we increasingly on the verge of another health scare? To find out, we welcome Will Humble, Executive Director of the Arizona Public Health Association. Will, good to have you here. Update on bird flu. What's going on here?
Thanks, Ted. Yeah, so it's circulating around the world. This new H5N1 strain has been circulating in like bird wildlife for a few years now. What's new in the U.S. is that it's really been attacking some big flocks of poultry farms, and even some here in Arizona, which has caused the poultry farmers to have to euthanize a lot of their animals and so forth. So it's at this point it's really an agricultural virus that's affecting the agricultural sector financially, much less so a public health issue.
But
for humans.
To keep an eye on, though.
Sure, keep an eye on. Right.
Okay. Is it spreading or is it evolving or both?
So it's spreading. It's spread basically from wild birds to more domestic flocks. That's the big shift. And then, as you mentioned a minute ago, it's been infecting certain kinds of cats, cattle. So farmers are interested in what it's doing. For example, when a cow gets infected, it hurts the milk production. And there's been a few people who work in dairy farms that have been infected, but it hasn't been bad symptoms or anything.
So what can be done to help stop the spread of the virus and or to help keep this thing from evolving into something that really is serious?
So the evolution of the influenza virus is, at least I think it's interesting. I think you will too.
Okay.
So there's a lot of influenza viruses that infect birds, avian influenza. That's what H5N1 is right now. There's also human influenza viruses, like H1N1, for example. And they're just basically infect those species separately. You get a new pandemic when you get pigs in the mix. So, yeah, I know, it's like an intermediate host. And so the thing about pigs is they can be infected with the avian influenza. They can also be infected with human influenza viruses. And so when a pig gets infected with both, it can reassort the RNA. This is RNA on my tie. It can reassort, create a new version of the virus that can travel from person to person. That's what happened with H1N1. That's what happened in 1968. That's what happened in 1959. So new influenza viruses get mixed in pigs from both the human influenza viruses and then the ones that infect poultry, birds. So pigs are the canaries in the coal mine. Yes, there are the stick that stirs the drink. Yes. So that explains partially why most of the influenza viruses that the new pandemics that we know about start in China. Why? Because the kind of agriculture they do in rural China is there's ducks wandering around. I've been there. I've seen it firsthand. It was a long time ago, but ducks wandering around, people, and then pigs. And so that's how the pigs can get infected with both of those kinds of when that happens, and it's virulent, meaning it causes dangerous symptoms, and it can go person to person. That's when you can get a new pandemic influenza. So the U.S. agriculture is really different. Like my wife's from Iowa. I've been there 100 times. You could see these hog pens. They're 100 meters long, but the pigs they don't get in contact with birds. They don't mix and match over there. And even really not very many humans get in there because they want to protect their pigs from the humans. They don't want a human going in there with a virus because it kills the pigs. We're getting a little off topic, but you get the point. Yes. And so that's what has not happened yet. We haven't had the reassortment to make H5N1 become something that infects goes human to human to cause a pandemic. That hasn't happened. It may not happen. So watch yourself around pigs. Correct. Okay. Let's say someone doesn't watch themselves around. People aren't watching themselves around pigs, and it's jumping, and the canary is already doing what it does in the coal mine. Are we prepared if a pandemic or something up close to a pandemic hits this country? So everything depends on how dangerous the virus is, because you could say you're prepared for something. If it's super bad, we're never going to be prepared. I would say we were much better prepared 6 months ago than we are today. Why? Because so many of the research scientists have been fired, encouraged to quit. Research is reducing at the National Institutes of Health. The CDC talent has been leaving and encouraged to leave and getting fired. So the people that work in infectious diseases at the federal level have been leaving and will continue to leave because of what's happening nationally. And then the cuts that have been happening at the state and local level. Arizona had, I think, $250 million of cuts just in the last few months in various sectors of public health. So all of these budget cuts and the firings of people have a real life impact on how prepared we are to deal with new threats like an influenza pandemic or something else that we don't know about, like COVID-19. Right. The cuts in general, especially the local cuts, which that's boots on the ground kind of stuff there, isn't it? Those are people that have jobs, that work on antiviral distribution, that have those kinds of preparedness responsibilities at the national level with vaccine research. With being able to deploy a vaccine when it becomes available, like mass vaccination sites and so forth. Like, you have to have the infrastructure in place when the pandemic happens in order for you to be able to respond effectively. So that's the answer to your question. We're less prepared now than we were. Less prepared to deal with a pandemic, less prepared to recognize a pandemic, or both? Both. And globally, it's even, because remember, the U.S. has quit the World Health Organization. We paid our dues in 2025, so they haven't had a huge budget cut yet. So it's even an internationally, the world is less prepared than we were.
All right, Will Humble. I think the lesson here is stay away from pigs. Thank you for joining. Thank you for joining.
Wrong message.
Thank you.
I'm Amna Nawaz. Tonight on the NewsHour, the Trump administration pulls back on some auto tariffs, what it means for American car makers. That's coming up at 6 on Arizona PBS.
Starting May 7th, a Real ID will be required for air travel within the U.S. Now, Real IDs will also be needed in a variety of other ways in terms of getting into federal offices and military areas. What is Real ID and how do you get one? We spoke with Bill Damerow from the Motor Vehicle Department to find out. What is a Real ID?
Exactly. A Real ID is a federally compliant credential that gets you past TSA to fly domestically. It also would get you access to federal facilities that might have more access or controlled access, like the courts or military bases.
Okay, so military bases, federal buildings, these sorts of things.
Correct.
How does it differ from a driver's license?
So it is, in Arizona, the Real ID compliant identification is the Arizona Travel ID, and that can be a driver license or it can be just a regular ID card as well.
So if it's a driver's license, you got what, like a star or a dot or something? What?
Correct. So there are two different forms of identification you can have in Arizona. One is the standard Arizona driver license, and one is the Arizona Travel ID. In order to get the Travel ID, it matches those federal requirements. And once you prove to those requirements at the MVD office, when you get your new driver license in the mail, it will have that star on it in the upper right-hand corner.
Interesting. Okay, how does this Real ID differ from a passport?
So exactly, the passport is used for international travel. In this case, the Real ID or the Arizona Travel ID is used for domestic flights.
Interesting. How does it differ from a tribal ID?
It does not, actually. So there are a myriad of federal identification cards that are federally compliant. You don't have to use the Arizona Travel ID. If you want, you can use your passport, the passport card, the tribal card. If you want to use all those, you can to fly domestically. If you don't want to take your passport with you just to go to Pittsburgh or Denver or LA, you can use the Arizona Travel ID, and it's always in your purse or wallet.
Okay, who needs a Real ID and who doesn't need a Real ID?
If you don't have a federal form of a credential of federal ID, then the Arizona Travel ID would be perfect for you, or in this case, the Real ID. But the Real ID is known nationally. The Arizona Travel ID is the Arizona version.
Yeah. So on May 7th, what happens? What happens when you're standing at the gate on May 7th, or May 8th for that matter?
And so that's where the TSA is going to come in, and they are going to ask for that credential. And you may have delays that you may not pass. We'll see come May 7th.
And now. But now, if you have a military ID, is that good enough?
Correct. Yes. So basically, there's a long list of federal identification cards that are already that comply with those federal requirements. The Arizona Travel ID is for those that don't have any of those, and they still do know that you're flying. You need to get one.
But again, the passport is for international travel.
Correct.
What about domestic? No.
It would work.
It would work.
Yeah, it absolutely would, because it is a federal form of ID, and there is a passport card. So a lot of folks get the passport, and for an extra fee, get the passport card. You could do that instead of the Arizona Travel ID. But again, the Arizona Travel ID is for those that don't have any other federal form. It's a great way to keep it in your purse or wallet, and you're good to go.
So what's the process for getting this special ID?
Absolutely. So we've got a great, convenient way to do it. You start by booking an appointment at your MVD office that's convenient for you, for a day and time that's convenient for you. Then you also make sure before you come into that appointment that you've got the proper documentation, which includes your birth certificate, which needs to be the authentic one from the state that you're born in, a certified copy or the original. It can't be the hospital version that a lot of parents get for their children. You have to bring your Social Security number and then 2 forms of mail with your current address and your proper name on it to verify Arizona residency.
Back to the birth certificate thing, I think everyone's got a copy of their birth certificate. Is a copy of the birth certificate good enough?
It has to be a certified copy. It can't just be one of the copy that you scanned off at a Xerox or something. It has to be a certified copy or the original. In my case, I have the original.
So if you don't have the original, what do you do?
You can work with the state you were born in to get that certificate, or you could actually bring in your passport. If you already have a valid U.S. passport, that would work as well.
But that is required. Of all the things that are needed, that's the one you need.
You need either the birth certificate or the passport.
Or the passport. Okay,
Correct.
all right. And you need to go to MVD.
Correct.
Make an appointment first?
You can, but in Arizona, you can do walk-ins as well. And I love the flexibility, because what the appointment does, it basically gets you in front of the walk-in crowds. So it skirts you to the front of the line. But if you happen to come in Tuesday, Wednesdays, and Thursdays are really kind of the better days to come in an MVD, until I tell you that now.
Yeah.
But Mondays and Fridays tend to be a little bit busier, so you might want to book that appointment for the day and time that's convenient for you. If Monday through Friday isn't good for your schedule, because a lot of folks do work like 8 to 5 or beyond, there are authorized third-party locations that are open later, or also even open on Saturdays.
And because of the authentication that's needed, you can't go online and do this, correct?
Some folks can. So there's a couple of requirements. And so in Arizona, you have to have your photo taken at least every 12 years. Now with the travel ID, that expiration bumps to 8 years. And so if you've got a photo that's newer than 8 years and you've already shown a lot of that identification information to the MVD and it's on file, you could actually even do it online and save yourself a trip to the MVD.
Is that information online? Can you find out if it can use online?
Absolutely. And what's beautiful is if you go to azdot.gov/MVD, there's a great feature on there called live chat. You can actually live chat with a professional CSR, customer service representative, and he or she can tell you if you can do it right then and there, or if you need an appointment.
It's not one of those AI things, is it?
No, they are live, actual Arizona employees.
When you go to MVD, real quickly here, because we're running out of time, and speaking of real quickly, how long does the process take? I think we've all been in MVD when it's taking a little longer than we anticipated. How long does this process take?
And I am proud to say that the Arizona MVD is one of the best in the nation. The average wait time is 25 to 30 minutes tops, door to door. So if you book your appointment, it might even be less than that.
And how long, you're talking about the process or the wait time?
The entire wait time, if you walk in the door from door to door, it's about 25 to 30 minutes. Then and the other thing I want to make sure people know is to be photo ready that day. So when you come in, we will take a new photo of you, so be ready. You don't have to smile, but be photo ready.
And how long before it arrives?
I say 10 to 14 days, but mine came in 4.
In 4 days?
Yes.
Okay, and it's good for, you said 8 years?
8 years, and it costs $25 at initial and renewal.
All right, once again, where do you go to get all this stuff online?
azdot.gov/MVD.
Bill Amaro, A.MVD. Good information. Good to have you here.
Thank you.
And that's it for now. I'm Ted Simons. Thank you so much for joining us. You have a great evening.